Really tremendous.
Can I ask you one more question? Sorry, Mr. President, one more question if you don't mind. I'm so sorry, sir. It's a rare opportunity. A lot of people are going to be rushing to Iowa, rushing to New Hampshire. You know that the Democrats are already looking ahead to 2020. Do you want to lock down your ticket right now, sir? Will the vice president be your running mate in 2020?
Well, I haven't asked him, but I hope so. Where are you? Mike, will you be my running mate? Huh? Stand up, Mike, please. Raise your right hand. No, I'm only kidding. Will you? Thank you. Okay, good. The answer is yes. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
That was unexpected, but I feel very fine. Yeah.
And we have seen the importance of having a leader that we can count on in a crisis. It's not Donald Trump. It is Joe Biden.
If he asked you to be his running mate, would you say yes?
Yes.
I'm so happy you just gave me a concise answer to that.
Congresswoman Val Demings is getting increasing attention as a potential running mate for Joe Biden. Biden acknowledged Demings was on his list after joining her in a virtual campaign stop at Second Harvest Food Bank in early May. Demings has served less than 4 years in Congress, but has quickly become a favorite among Democratic leaders and served as a House impeachment manager against President Trump. A friend of Demings, Orlando attorney Camille Evans, said Demings' rise from police chief to Congress proves she has the skills to get things done, regardless of her lack of years on Capitol Hill.
You don't always have to stick with the way we've always done things to get things right. And Val has been engaged with the system at one level or another for quite some time, truly her whole career.
WESH 2 News reached out to Demings about the possibility of being picked by Biden. In an email, Demings said, "The fact that I am being considered for such an important position during such a critical time sends a strong message that possibilities are endless in America if given the opportunity. I want to make sure that every American child, no matter their background, has those same opportunities."
Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham remains on Joe Biden's short list for vice president. According to the Associated Press, she's one of 6 people being considered as Biden's running mate. The others include Senator Kamala Harris, former National Security Advisor Susan Rice, Representative Val Demings, Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, and Senator Elizabeth Warren. The AP says the search has entered a second round of vetting.
There's no question about that, Joe. My colleagues at the AP and other outlets have all had a series of stories in the last few days about this very topic. The process is accelerating. The Biden team has conducted a number of interviews. They're moving on to looking at sort of financial disclosures and personal information. So some of the names that we have all expected. Senator Kamala Harris certainly is right near the top of the list. Senator Elizabeth Warren remains there as well. A few surprises. Tammy Baldwin is in the mix. Val Demings, we know. And certainly to your point, the events of the last few weeks are certainly shaping how the Biden team is looking at this. So, as you know, the former vice president has pledged to pick a female vice president. There's people around him, Democrats, including Congressman Clyburn, who have said at this moment with the protests, and particularly those in Minnesota, have hurt the chances of Senator Klobuchar. But others, it may be helping them. Val Demings in particular, speaking out in this moment. Susan Rice, former Obama administration official, is another one who has gained momentum in this stretch. And certainly it can't be overstated how important this pick is. I think traditionally selections of vice presidents tend to be a little bit overrated. Perhaps those of us in the media care more about it than the actual voters who are going to go to the ballot box, who tend to make their choice based on the name at the top rather than the bottom of the ticket. But in this one, with Joe Biden potentially, were he to win, being the oldest president to be elected, as discussed, there are health issues concerning the conversations about both candidates, Biden and Trump. I think there's a real sense here of really needing to sort of solidify this pick, nail this pick, not just for electoral purposes, not just to perhaps gain a state on the map, but also to reassure. This vice president, more than others, is really going to be seen as being one heartbeat away from the top job. And I think that the Biden team knows that, and they're taking it very thoroughly, and they're taking it very seriously as they proceed. Their timetable, probably to make their selection in early August, a few days or weeks before the Democratic convention, whatever shape that convention will take.
Senator, we're probably 7 or 8 weeks away from Joe Biden making a choice for the vice presidential slot. Should Joe Biden return to Minnesota, as Democrats have in the past, choosing Democratic Senator Hubert Humphrey from Minnesota for vice president, then choosing Walter Mondale for vice president? What case would you make at this point in the campaign for the senior senator from Minnesota as the vice presidential candidate?
You know, Lawrence, I have never, as you probably know, on many, many shows since I endorsed the vice president on that joyful night in Dallas, I've never commented on this process at all. But let me tell you this, after what I've seen in my state, what I've seen across the country, this is a historic moment, and America must seize on this moment. And I truly believe, as I actually told the vice president last night when I called him, that I think this is a moment to put a woman of color on that ticket. And there are so many incredibly qualified women. But if you want to heal this nation right now, my party, yes, but our nation, this is sure a hell of a way to do it. And that's just what I think after being through this in my state.
Presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden is planning to pick a running mate by the 1st of August. Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms remains a possible choice, and until recently, she was a relative unknown on the national political scene. But why is her name now in the running for VP? Here's our Why Guy.
It's been close to a year since Atlanta's mayor made it clear that Joe Biden is her choice for president. Her support has not wavered, and now there's talk that Keisha Lance Bottoms could join the Biden ticket.
I'm honored to have my name spoken in that way.
Over the past few weeks, Mayor Bottoms has become a familiar voice all over the country. Let's explore why her name has appeared as a possible running mate for Joe Biden. University of Georgia political science professor Dr. Charles Bullock says it starts with the mayor's early endorsement of candidate Biden.
She stuck with him when many people had written him off, so she demonstrated her loyalty.
Emory political science professor Andra Gillespie points to two key issues, the pandemic and protests. The mayor was a prominent voice when the president and governor began efforts to ease coronavirus restrictions.
She was making decisions based on data in a way that Democrats would approve of.
Then came the death of George Floyd. Atlanta streets filled with protests that were mostly peaceful, while condemning moments of looting and violence.
They're burning down our community.
Mayor Bottoms expressed empathy and a desire for action. In the days immediately following the death of Rayshard Brooks in southeast Atlanta, the mayor ordered changes to the police department's use of force policies.
She was kind of threading a needle between more moderate and more radical camps in a way that the Biden campaign may find to be pretty attractive.
While Bottoms has worked in all three branches of government, it's been all on the local level. For now, the mayor says she's got her hands full running the city of Atlanta.
There's one question in politics right now. Who will Joe Biden pick as his running mate? One name making the rounds is Senator Tammy Duckworth of Illinois.
She has a lot of intangibles that make her unique and separate her from your more progressive Democratic candidates that were mentioned as front runners beforehand.
The Thai American senator and recipient of the Purple Heart has been generating headlines. She's a double amputee who lost both of her legs in combat. If picked, the senator would strengthen Joe Biden's foreign policy credentials.
Veterans who have served our country understand the impact that they have when they're in leadership positions.
Furthermore, for America's military community, a veteran of the Iraq War in the White House could only be a positive. If chosen, Duckworth would be the first veteran vice president since Al Gore. What's more, veterans suggest that her presence in the White House could usher in real change and visibility for Americans and veterans with disabilities.
And she's not going to allow that disability to hinder her from her duties. And that's what many of our veterans around the world do today, regardless of their disability.
On paper, Duckworth checks off many boxes, but she's also been a target of criticism for her suggestion that there should be a national dialogue on the removal of statues. But for many political observers, Duckworth is a unique and interesting candidate Biden would do well to consider. If elected, the senator would also add the title of first female vice president to a long list of firsts.
I'm going to do everything I can to help get Joe Biden elected and to help him succeed as president, whether I'm his running mate or I'm a door knocker. I don't mind.
Susan Rice is best known for her role in the Obama administration.
I'm deeply honored and humbled to serve our country as your national security advisor.
She was Obama's ambassador to the United Nations in the first term. She was a little bit overshadowed by Hillary Clinton, who was the Secretary of State. By far, the most important event of that first term was the intervention in Libya.
As president, I refuse to wait for the images of slaughter and mass graves before taking action.
President Obama was faced with the extremely difficult decision of whether the United States should intervene.
As we have just learned that the U.S. ambassador to Libya has been killed. It happened overnight.
The U.S. diplomatic station in Benghazi was attacked and then became the focus of massive partisan investigations.
We do not have information at present that leads us to conclude that this was premeditated or pre-planned.
If she is chosen as Joe Biden's running mate, she would be a target for conservatives who are obsessed with Benghazi.
This is about the role she played around 4 dead Americans when it seems to be that the story coming out of the administration, and she's the point person, is so disconnected to reality, I don't trust her.
Frankly, they never really showed that Rice did anything wrong except use some talking points and language in the beginning of the crisis that wasn't quite on the mark.
And make his
When she worked running the National Security Council in the second term of the Obama administration, when Biden was deeply involved with foreign policy issues, he would have worked with her on an almost daily basis. She's been in the corridors of power for most of her adult life, and that certainly comes off in her self-presentation.
For the first time that I can remember, our democracy is under assault.
Susan Rice does not have all that much experience on campaigns. She's a bit of a blank slate with a lot of issues outside of foreign policy, which could be a good thing politically for Biden. On the other hand, running for president or vice president, she'd be sort of thrown into the deep end of the pool for the first time. Her core strength is that she has something that Joe Biden has repeatedly said privately that he is looking for, and that is a number two who is intensely loyal to him.
Choosing the vice president is whether or not the person is simpatico with me in terms of where I want to take the country. It's really important that the next president is able to do what Barack was able to do with me.
There's one decision nearly everyone is waiting on Joe Biden to make.
Who might be the VP pick?
Who's the vice president going to pick as his running mate?
Joe Biden is now trying to narrow his search for a vice president.
Ever since the former vice president made it clear that he was choosing a woman,
I will in fact I'll pick a woman to be vice president.
There's been a race to find out who that woman is. And basically the name of almost every single woman who has a national profile has been thrown out.
Stacey Abrams.
Congresswoman Val Demings.
Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren.
But at this point, there seems to be one lawmaker that all signs point to as being at the top of the list.
Plus, the search for Joe Biden's running mate, Senator Kamala Harris, is out front.
Sitting U.S. Senator Kamala Harris.
So I called our resident Kamala Harris expert on the 2020 team.
I'm Chris Catalogo, national political reporter at Politico.
Chris, you spent the presidential primary covering Kamala Harris. And right now, she is it seems like she has been for a long time, at the top of the list for Vice President Joe Biden's beat pick. Does it feel like this is her Veepstakes to lose?
It does in many ways. I mean, we see this list narrowing down and we look at kind of what she's done since she dropped out of the primary. And she immediately sort of rushed back to the Senate and started focusing on coronavirus and a lot of the disparities there between various communities, including people of color. And then, of course, we had this huge moment with the death of George Floyd. And since then, her platform in the Senate has really been elevated. She's been all over TV. She's been in the Senate introducing with Cory Booker the police reform bill. And so while she's focused on these things, of course, we have this Veepstakes going on. And she, out of all these candidates, we've noticed that our contenders here, we've noticed that she's seemed to play very much an inside game. So a lot of what we hear her talking about is what she's focused on in the Senate, but we don't see her out there sort of in a way overtly promoting herself for the job.
What are the political benefits that he gets from choosing her?
So we saw over the course of the primary that this is someone with a lot of raw political talent. This is we saw what she could do. She clearly was able to build a following. There's at the same time this question of representation, and a lot of people feel like Black voters and Black women in particular have spent decades supporting the Democratic Party. This is something Kamala Harris herself sort of voiced in one of the last debates in Atlanta, that it's time that the party recognize the contribution of Black women. And so we can't really separate that much larger overarching sort of need within the party from her as an individual.
When it comes to the Republican-led police reform bill, what is she weighing on whether or not she decides to go with it or go against it because it is Republican-led?
There's very, very little upside for her to sign on any kind of Republican compromise on police reform. And part of the reason is Democrats who want to see these reforms passed would not be satisfied by what the Republicans have put forward. And she's already facing some skepticism over the course of her career by being sort of too accommodating to law enforcement, by being unwilling to push for more ambitious reforms. And so now that she's embraced this role as a police reformer, she's really got to stick to the proposals that Democrats have put forward.
What are the reasons he would not choose her? Because what we've learned in 2016 is that anything can happen. So what are the reasons why Vice President Joe Biden would not pick Kamala Harris?
We're in this era from COVID to these protests that have sort of galvanized the country. But we're coming off a primary where there's an incredible amount of power in the economic populism that we've seen within the Democratic Party. And of course, that's represented to a large degree by Elizabeth Warren. And what we saw from Kamala Harris in the campaign is she was more of a traditional Democrat. So I think if he's trying to capture some of that within the party, if he's trying to go left, so to speak, and pick a progressive, that would be something that would work against her. The other thing that Biden has to consider here, given his advancing age, is he's really picking someone he could pass the torch to within the party. So who he picks is going to determine a lot of the direction of the party over the next 4 to 12 years potentially, and that is really added to the stakes of this decision this time around. There really is a lot at stake, just in the sense that he himself has described himself as a bridge within the party. And so if he's a bridge, what is he a bridge to?
Have you picked a running mate yet?
Biden on a bike ride in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, stoking speculation about his pick for vice president.
Yeah, I have. You have? Who is it? Who is it? You.
Kidding aside, the choice is crucial to Biden's campaign, and Democrats are eager for a decision. Democratic sources telling NBC News Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer met with Biden for several hours last weekend. Eagle-eyed aviators spotted flight records of a private plane flying from Lansing to Delaware.
You've got a nominee who's trying to vet a running mate as carefully as possible to make sure that there are no surprises. And at the same time, you've got a nominee who wants to make an announcement that catches everyone by surprise. He doesn't want to be scooped.
Tinted windows on motorcades outside Biden's house and public speculation about other in-person interviews. Just a few hallmarks of the ever-secretive process.
Probably know more than I do.
A source familiar with the process tells NBC News Senator Kamala Harris and former Obama National Security Advisor Susan Rice are in the final round of consideration, as well as Senators Elizabeth Warren and Tammy Duckworth.
Every one of the women we've interviewed is qualified, and I've narrowed it down.
The timing for a pick has changed repeatedly, but sources say it could come by the middle of next week or sooner. Still, the campaign teasing a fundraiser for donors with Biden and his Veep, whoever she is.
Ali joins us now from Washington. Ali, is there at least one firm deadline Biden is up against for the decision?
There is, Jose. Biden has blown past a few of his own self-imposed deadlines for this choice, but the Democratic National Convention is only 9 days away, and he'll need to make a pick before then.
I am just being told we have a pick, and it's Kamala Harris of California. Just told in my ear at this second. For the record, those applause were from Claire McCaskill. Kamala Harris is the breaking news. Biden has selected the California senator as his running mate. Who do we have up? Mike Memley, Wilmington.
Well, what was I just saying, Brian? The obvious choice to a lot of folks before this process is indeed the final choice for the former vice president. It is California Senator Kamala Harris. I think a number of factors to take into consideration. One is when we've seen a vice presidential choice that has been a surprise, what has been a common theme? It has been somebody who needed to shake up the race. I think Sarah Palin being chosen by John McCain in 2008. Think Geraldine Ferraro by Walter Mondale in 1984. This, of course, is a campaign that is feeling very much confident in its current standing in the polls, aware, of course, that when you're running against Donald Trump, things can change in a hurry. But what has been, of course, number one rule in vice presidential search process is do no harm. And this seems to be, by the account of, I think, a lot of Democrats who've been close to this process, the advice that Joe Biden has been getting. Now, we've talked about a virtual announcement, a digital announcement. I will read to you briefly from the email that has just shown up in our inbox. Biden beginning by explaining what he thought he needed in a running mate. He said, "These are not normal times. I need somebody working alongside me who is smart, tough, and ready to lead. Kamala is that person." Typically, of course, it's not a surprise to see a candidate chosen as Joe Biden was in 2008, who served and was part of the presidential race as well. We know that Eric Garcetti, a member of that four-person search committee, recently said that everyone passed the vet. But certainly there's, I think, a degree of comfort on a lot of people's part that Kamala Harris herself was part of this presidential race. She was vetted during the course of that. And let's not forget, she was vetted in the course of a career in California politics, not beanball by any means. She was elected statewide twice as the Attorney General and then as a U.S. Senator in 2016. And so for a campaign that is eager to continue the message focused squarely on what Joe Biden has said since day one is about a battle for the soul of America. Clearly, Biden making that decision that the partner he wants alongside in fighting that battle is somebody who he has seen on the campaign trail, and it's sometimes directed at him, willing to fight, and that is Kamala Harris, Brian.
And we continue our breaking news in campaign 2020. Joe Biden has just made his first public appearance with his newly chosen running mate, Senator Kamala Harris. And we have team coverage for you this evening. Let's begin with Joe Holden at AI DuPont High School in Wilmington. Good evening, Joe.
Yuki, good evening. It was a 30-minute introduction, both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris basically splitting the time, and Joe Biden saying about his partner on the ticket that Kamala Harris knows the challenges. Her story is America's story. He said it is different than his own, but not different in the essentials. Let's go ahead and take a listen to both.
This morning, all across the nation, little girls woke up, especially little black and brown girls, who so often feel overlooked and undervalued in their communities. But today, just maybe, they're seeing themselves for the first time in a new way.
This is a moment of real consequence for America. Everything we care about, our economy, our health, our children, the kind of country we live in, it's all on the line. We're reeling from the worst public health crisis in a century. The president's mismanagement of the pandemic has plunged us into the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression.
And so what's missing? Clearly the crowds inside, the raucous applause, the cheers. Trust me, the crowd is here. They're actually out back. They tried to get a glimpse of both candidates. Now, Joe Biden did say he wished he could see them, but it is a sign of the times. We spoke with the people out here, too. Let's go ahead and take a listen. Joe Biden's reveal on Tuesday that Kamala Harris would join his ticket as running mate stoked enthusiasm in his hometown.
I wanted it to be her. She was one of my favorites in the campaign, and I think that they work very well together.
Harris, a first-term senator from California, makes for the first black woman vice presidential candidate on a major party ticket. To many, that mints the former prosecutor a trailblazer.
It's just exciting to see the first African-American female vice president and to see a female to represent all the ladies.
Despite lightning and a few rumbles of thunder, people milled about the grounds of Alexis I. DuPont High School, a short distance from the Biden residence.
This ticket is reflective of the United States of America, and I think that's important.
To the locals, Biden is a familiar presence, and Harris, she is a fresh face.
There's so much wrapped up in Kamala Harris. She is African American. She is from an immigrant family.
And her parents, Kamala Harris said during her speech, were brought together in Oakland in the 1960s during civil rights protests. And she said she recalled being brought to those protests. Of course, a lot to digest as we've just heard it from both. I'm back at 6 with the latest and reaction from the White House. Reporting live outside AI DuPont, this is Joe Holden, CBS 3 Eyewitness News.
Joe, thank you.